and welcome to this week's What's for Dinner. I've got 4 great, delicious dinner ideas to share with you this week. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'd love for you to join my YouTube family and get to know you in the comments. This week's first meal is a Mexican-inspired venison stew. Now, of course, if you don't eat venison or any other game meats, you could always replace it with beef, chicken, pork, or you could leave the meat out completely, whatever your preference is. Here, I'm just going to be cutting up some onions, some orange and green peppers, as well as some carrots. Pot, I've got a backstrap roast as well as a couple jalapeno cheddar smokies cut up. The reason I used the jalapeno cheddar smokies today, 2 reasons. I had them in my fridge and they needed to be used up, as well as I didn't have any jalapenos on hand and I wanted that extra little bit of kick since this is supposed to be a Mexican inspired stew. So I've had those cooking up for a little while, just with some garlic powder, salt and pepper. And now I'm going to add in my vegetables that we chopped up earlier. I've added some minced garlic. I just used the jar stuff from my fridge. And now I'm going to add, I cut up 2 yellow potatoes and 2 red potatoes. I just had a couple red potatoes left that needed to be used up. Now I'm going to add 1 can of rinsed and drained pinto beans. The recipe did call for kidney beans, but I really prefer pinto beans when it comes to Mexican style food. And now I'm adding a can of heirloom crushed tomatoes. You can of course use any kind of crushed tomatoes you like. Next I add about a tablespoon of chili powder, 2 teaspoons of jalapeno pepper sauce. I just used this jalapeno hot sauce that I had from Great Value. Obviously you can add more or less depending on how spicy you like it. Now I'm going to give that all a really good mix, and then I'm going to realize that this is really, really thick, and the recipe actually doesn't call for any other liquid to be added to it. It did call for a can of diced tomatoes, which I'm thinking is probably got that tomato liquid in it, whereas I used crushed tomatoes instead. So I do end up adding a bit of beef broth. Just end up doing, I think, about a can. I mixed it in my tomato can just to get out that extra tomato in there as well. I think I end up doing about 2 of those. Now I let this cook on my stove at a low simmer for about 2.5 to 3 hours, just to make sure those potatoes are really cooked, that venison is really tender, along with all the other vegetables. This was so delicious. I did serve it with some homemade artisan style bread, which I have a recipe video coming out for on Wednesday, so stay tuned for that. Like I said before, if you are not a fan of game meats, of course you can always try the same recipes with substituting for a different meat. We do have a freezer full of different game meats, so I'm trying to incorporate more of those, and I hope maybe to inspire some of you who are the same and have freezer full of game meat with some new recipes. Our next dinner idea is breakfast for dinner, which is always a classic favorite. Here I've got half a slab of homemade bacon that I'm just cutting up into relatively thick strips and putting them into a frying pan to cook up. Of course, you can just use regular store-bought bacon. You don't have to have homemade. I happen to have this in my freezer and wanted to use it. Some shredded hash browns that if you saw my Costco haul this week, that's where these are from, and I just followed the package directions and then put them in a really big frying pan and am crisping them up. I just season them with a bit of salt and pepper. I have butter and oil in the pan just so that the oil doesn't burn and the hash browns don't stick. I've also got that bacon that I cut up here. And I'm just going to flip over that we're cooking. I cook my bacon really low and slow so that we get the crispiness, but it doesn't burn. Now we've got that bacon starting to look so delicious. Got 4 eggs cooking in the back in a pan. Those hash browns are getting nice and golden brown and crispy. And then in the back there, I've just got a pot with some hollandaise sauce in it. Now this is just packaged hollandaise sauce. I do sometimes make it on my own. This day I did not want to, but it's still so good. So unhealthy, but so good. Now I've plated that all up. I toasted up some of those croissants that I got from Costco, put an egg on top of those, some hash browns. Here's that delicious hollandaise sauce. I also have some cut up tomatoes that I seasoned with just some salt and pepper. Am I the only one who eats tomatoes with their breakfast? Or is that like a Canadian thing? I'm also making mimosas on the side, because who doesn't love a good mimosa? And this is a perfect excuse to have them. Our next meal is buffalo chicken nuggets and air fryer wings. So I'm starting off here with one frozen chicken breast and one defrosted chicken breast. Obviously you don't have to do that, it's just I had one out. I've seasoned it here with some ranch seasoning. Then I'm going to put some buffalo wing seasoning on top and some barbecue just to keep everything really moist. This is in my slow cooker, and I'm going to let this cook throughout the day. I probably only had this in for about 3 hours. You can cook it for longer or shorter, just until those chicken breasts are nice and tender and easy to shred up. Next, I've got a bowl here with some chicken wings that I defrosted over the day, and this is my secret to the best chicken wings: baking powder. I know it sounds really weird, but all I do is sprinkle a little bit of baking powder on them, give that a really good mix, then they go in my air fryer or in the oven, depending on how I'm feeling that day. You don't need oil, you don't need to deep fry them, and they come out so crispy and so delicious. I use some of that same buffalo seasoning on these. Gave them a mix, cooked them in my air fryer for probably about 20 minutes, and I will show you guys them how crispy and how delicious they look when they come out. Here is that chicken. It is so tender. I'm barely even pushing on it, and it's falling apart, which is exactly what we want, because we want those nice shreds to put on top of our nachos. I'm going to add a little bit more barbecue sauce just to make sure that these are really juicy. And then we're going to start assembling our nachos together. I start off with a foil-lined pan, lay out my nacho chips or tortilla chips, cover it in cheese. I've got peppers cut up, green onions, layer up that chicken on top, more cheese on top of that, more green onions on top of that, barbecue sauce just to tie in that barbecue flavoring. Of course, you can add anything you want, anything you like on your nachos. You can add your green onions after they come out. Do it how you like them. This is what we love, and they've turned out so good. Now here are those delicious chicken wings, fresh out of the air fryer. I just have them on a cookie sheet so I can pop them in the oven and keep them warm while I get those nachos together. But look at that crispy skin. These are so good. Here are the nachos fresh out of the oven. That cheese is gooey. Everything is hot and warmed through. I seasoned up our chicken wings. Ryan likes barbecue. I like hot honey or honey hot. It's just a mixture of buffalo wing sauce and honey garlic sauce, and that is my favorite, and this was a delicious dinner. Now our next meal is a Crockpot chicken and gravy recipe that I got from Jessica O'Donoghue. This is a Bunky special, and it was so good, and I will definitely be making it again. So here in my crock pot, I've got 3 chicken breasts that I put some smoked paprika on. I forgot to hit record, sorry about that. Now I'm just adding a bit of garlic powder. We're going to add a package of chicken gravy, as well as 1 can of cream of chicken soup. If I make this again, which I definitely will, I would make the mixture of all this stuff in the bottom of the crock pot and then put the seasoned chicken in it. It was just a little difficult to mix up, but that was my bad. I'm pretty sure the recipe actually says to make this stuff in the bottom, but still turned out great. No complaint. I also added 1 can full of water just to make sure that that gravy gets really mixed in. And then I put this on low in my slow cooker for the entire day. Honestly, this probably cooked for around 11 hours because we were gone for the day. When we got home, I just threw some potatoes into a pot with chicken stock and some green beans in a pan with chicken stock, bacon, and garlic. This is that chicken all shredded up in that delicious sauce. And we've got our mashed potatoes. I just added some sour cream, butter, milk, you know, the usual stuff. Topped that off with the chicken and gravy mixture. Tossed on some green beans onto my plate that were so good. I love green beans made like this. And I did top that chicken with a little bit of parsley just for a little bit of extra flavor and that little bit of color just so it looked prettier. Okay, so that is my last dinner idea for the week. I will of course link Jessica O'Donoghue's video down in the bottom. Don't forget to subscribe and like and comment. Thanks guys.